Microplastics in Lake Champlain. A growing environmental threat. Plastic pollution isn't some distant problem. It's right here, lurking in our lakes, rivers, and even inside us. But did you know that Lake Champlain, a beloved natural resource spanning over 8,000 square miles, is quietly becoming ground zero in the microplastics crisis? And here's where most people start to worry. Microplastics are turning up not just in the water but also in the air, our food, and eventually our bodies. Recently, a group of scientists, activists, and environmental organizations came together on the University of Vermont's research boat, the Marcel Melisira, determined to get to the bottom of how plastics sneak into the lake. Reporters had a front-row seat as researchers displayed an array of plastic pollutants, from broken-down fragments and twisted fibers to spongy bits of foam, and the lesser-known nurdles. Curious what a nurdle is? These are tiny bead-like pieces of plastic that manufacturers melt and mold into all sorts of everyday products. Shockingly, factories in both Vermont and neighboring New York use nurdles for plastic molding. And somehow, whether by spillage during transport or questionable disposal practices, they're ending up in the water. And this is the part most people miss. If large plastic waste isn't cleaned up soon, it gradually disintegrates, fragmenting into ever tinier particles. The process is relentless, and eventually these particles become so small, sometimes invisible to the naked eye, that they wind up inside fish, birds, animals, and yes, even us. A sobering Canadian study from 2019 estimated that Americans unknowingly ingest over 70,000 microplastic particles annually, courtesy of their food, drinking water, and even the air they breathe. Just imagine, every sip of water, every breath, could contain tiny plastic bits you can't see or taste. Researchers have even discovered what they believe are pre-production rubber nurdles, some less than a millimeter wide. From a scientific viewpoint, these are different from the microscopic tire particles, also common in water. But under a microscope they all look the same: tiny, round, and nearly impossible to trace back to their source. How does litter travel so far? As UVM research interns Molly Moaning and Erica Talley explained, anything from an empty soda bottle tossed atop Mount Mansfield to plastic wrappers left on a hiking trail could be swept down by rainwater, eventually flowing into Lake Champlain. The basin is enormous, offering countless entries for trash to make its way into the lake. To unravel the origins and types of plastics infiltrating Lake Champlain, the Lake Champlain Basin Marine Debris Coalition has taken a hands-on approach. They're enlisting the help of everyday citizens with a new debris tracker app, urging people to document and report plastic and other debris they spot. This grassroots data collection is crucial for scientists. The more they know about the types and sources of pollution, the better they can push for effective policies. Here's where controversy brews. One of the biggest sources of plastic pollution isn't what most would expect. Stray chunks of styrofoam, used to keep boat docks afloat, are shed into the water as these docks age or get bumped around by storms. Once in the water, the foam crumbles over time, creating an ongoing mess of microplastics that's virtually impossible to clean up. What's the solution? Surprisingly, some propose wrapping the foam in tougher plastic. Wait, more plastic to fight plastic? Counterintuitive, yes, but encasing styrofoam can actually prevent it from disintegrating and polluting the lake. Others advocate for using air-filled floats, which don't break apart. Legislation has stepped in to tackle the crisis. Vermont's recent Flood Safety Act, passed in 2024, outlaws the sale and repair of older styrofoam docks unless their foam is properly contained. Mike O'Brien, representing the Vermont Boat and Marine Association, has been working directly with landowners, especially those with old camps and aging docks, to raise awareness of the risks. He highlights that many people simply don't realize how easily unprotected foam can pollute the entire lake basin. Foam pollution isn't just from docks either. Researchers point out it comes from disposable packaging, food containers, coolers, and those ubiquitous white buoys. The statistics are staggering: roughly 2.3 million tons of polystyrene foam ends up buried in U.S. landfills each year, and less than 1% makes it to recycling facilities. But here's where nature complicates things. Flooding events regularly sweep entire trees into the rivers, and when these so-called drift trees collide with fragile foam docks, chunks of foam break loose, making their way downstream to the lake. Julie Silverman, who serves as the Conservation Law Foundation's lakekeeper for Champlain, emphasizes that these events only worsen the problem. And this part could spark debate. Silverman directly points a finger at the oil industry, arguing that plastics are now a backup plan for oil corporations as society moves toward renewable energy. With alternative energy becoming more common, Big Oil is looking for new ways to keep selling their product, and plastics are the answer, she says. Some might challenge this connection, but it's hard to ignore the evidence that oil and plastic interests are deeply intertwined. Is there hope? Absolutely. Silverman underscores that policy works. Since Vermont banned single-use plastics, like styrofoam containers and plastic bags, in 2020, these items show up less and less in the lake. Advocates are hopeful that the latest dock foam ban will also pay off. But let's hear from you. Do you think more legislation is the answer? Or do industry and consumers need to re-examine their habits first? Will wrapping foam docks in more plastic just delay the problem? Or is it a practical step until better solutions arrive? Should responsibility fall to manufacturers, lawmakers, or local communities? Share your thoughts, agree or disagree. And let's get the conversation started about real fixes for Lake Champlain's plastic problem. Your voice might just be the push needed for the next wave of change.